Good morning, friends. It's Michelle from Little Farm in the Valley. So I have in the kitchen in front of me, let me turn my camera around and show you. So this morning I'm dealing with a 5-gallon bucket of raw milk. It's fresh, it's raw, and it needs to be cleaned up as soon as possible while it's still fresh. So I think what we're gonna do, is a cheese making day. I've been out of mozzarella cheese and cream cheese for quite some time. So I'm thinking of doing 3 gallons of mozzarella and 2 gallons of cream cheese. Seems like a lot of cheese, but it's actually really not. Like for a gallon of mozzarella, you'll get, a pretty decent sized ball, but if you make one lasagna or a couple pizzas, it's gone. And you're out of cheese again. So that's the plan. There's my little helper, and we are gonna make some cheese this morning. So I gotta get all my pots out and get my stuff set up, and then we're gonna make some cheese. So here are the essentials. I got a couple pots. I've got my citric acid, salt, rennet. I've got my white vinegar. I have a couple strainer type things, and then over here my thermometer, rubber gloves, cheesecloth, knife for cutting the curds, and then the milk. I think we are about ready to start. So I'm gonna measure out a couple gallons into this first pot. This milk is from Holstein cows, so it's not super creamy, so it's kind of the perfect milk for cheese making. You don't really have to take any cream off unless you really wanted the cream. So it's 1 gallon. I think we're gonna do 2 gallons in here, so that'll be for the cream cheese. Too much fun here with this lid off the pail. He's not happy with his little extra saucer either. All right, there's our 2 gallons, and I think I can go ahead and assume this is 3 gallons, and so I won't bother measuring that out. That'll just be for my mozzarella in the other pot. Okay, starting with our mozzarella, we're going to measure out our citric acid, and we're going to dissolve it in some water. So it's 1.5 teaspoons per gallon. So we'll go ahead and do 3 teaspoons. And another one. And a half. Remember, we're taking this 3 times for our 3 gallons. We just want to try and dissolve it as best we can. This water is kind of lukewarm. So this is the first thing that we're going to add to our milk here. And this is basically to help the milk start to release the curd. So get your slotted spoon and give it a little stir just so that citric acid is stirred in. And I'm going to turn my burner to about 5. And then I'm going to get my temperature probe in here. So I've got my probe in the pot, and I'm looking for 80 degrees is what I usually let my mozzarella come to. So I'm going to set this down to 80, It's 54 now is what it's saying. So when it reaches 80, it's going to start beeping. I imagine with 3 gallons of milk, it'll take a while. This is actually the biggest batch of mozzarella that I've ever made. I think the most that I've made is 2 gallons. So this will be 3 gallons. Now it's going down to 46. 46. So yeah, it'll be a while before it reaches 80. So I've just got my probe in here. So we just have to wait until it reaches 80. I have the milk for the cream cheese here. I think it's smart to just deal with one cheese at a time though. So we'll deal with the mozzarella first. All right, so our milk reached about 85 before I got to it. Here's what it looks like. And we're gonna go ahead and measure our rennet. Again, we're gonna dissolve it in a little bit of water. And this is a 1/4 teaspoon per gallon. So we're gonna do that 3 times. And it says on this bottle that 1/2 teaspoon will set 2 gallons of milk in 45 minutes. So normally when I make just a gallon, that only takes 15 or 20 minutes to set. With my 2 gallons that I did a couple weeks ago, I did let it go about 45 minutes. So with this 3 gallon, I'm thinking maybe I should let it go for an hour. Again, just get it poured in there. Take your spoon and use an up and down motion. You can see there's quite a bit of curds already in here, but use an up and down motion. Make sure you get that rennet stirred in. So my pot is turned off, and now I'm just going to get the lid on here and put my timer on for an hour. And it's going to be just like this with the burner turned off for 60 minutes. Okay, it's been an hour, and here's what our cheese looks like. It's not the smoothest curd that I've ever had, but it's curdled nonetheless. So I don't know that we'll have to, yeah, it's solid anyway. Didn't look quite solid, but usually it's a smooth white, just kind of a plate of white smoothness, and this texture is a little bit different, but that doesn't mean we won't be able to make a cheese out of it. Okay, so next we're going to get the curds out of the way. So I have a cheesecloth. I'm going to lift my pot into the other sink. And we're going to take out the curds. It looks a little better on the bottom. You can see these bottom ones are smoother. That's usually how it is on top, just a smooth white curd. So we're going to get all these curds out into a cheesecloth. I don't know whether I'll, just take another cheesecloth and do the rest of it, or do it little by little. So I'm letting some of the whey run out the bottom here. Yeah, I think I better get another cheesecloth and get more of the curds out so it can have more time to drain while I'm messing around with one, the other one can be draining. I'm gonna see if I can get it into this strainer type thing here and just get it set aside to drain. And then I'm gonna get another cheesecloth going here and just keep on ladling off my curds. So the goal is to drain as much of the whey as you can off of this. Press it out through the cheesecloth or with your hands, whichever works better for you. Oh, I actually forgot to. I was thinking my whey is getting full here, but it's really not. So I'm okay. And anyway, once we have a lot of the whey drained off, we're gonna go ahead and reheat the curd. I'm gonna put a pot of water back on the stove and get it heating. And then we'll reheat the curd and that'll melt it back into a mozzarella for us. At this point, I'll start pouring. Gonna keep doing that until I have all my curd out. I may have to bring another one of those molds that I put the other bag into and do a third cheesecloth here. This is kind of uncharted territory for me because I've never done 3 gallons at once. So I'm just kind of figuring this out as I go. I'm gonna grab another mold and get this one out of here to drain. So my other one I have over here, kind of on top of a Pyrex thing, and you can see the whey is dripping down into there. So I'll kind of rig something up for this one as well, just to help that whey keep draining off. Try and tighten this a little bit so it doesn't, I don't lose any curds. I'll get it set into a bowl of some sort here. See how well that works. Okay, I'm going to dump out my whey. I'm thinking I should get everything in here. It should fit. This is a little bit less curd than I had in the other two. So the goal now is to get most of the whey out. I'm probably going to put it somewhere to drain for a little while as well. Okay, now that our curds have had a chance to drain a little bit, I'm going to see how they are when I dump them back in here. Hopefully it'll, yeah, that released itself pretty nicely from the cheesecloth. So now I can pretty much take them in my hand and keep squeezing out the way. And I'll just squeeze out as much as I'm comfortable with. I'll probably go kind of section by section, take a little bit at a time, get all the way out that I can, put the curds back in here. And I have a pot of water heating, and at whatever point I feel like I have most of the way out, we'll see if we can get this turned into mozzarella. Don't have a very good way of doing this. I feel like maybe I can handle this. There's people that kind of have the temperature down, like set your water at such and such a temperature to turn it into mozzarella. I'm not quite that technical. I just let it heat up to where it looks hot, and usually that does the trick for me. So I can't really tell you an exact temperature that you want your water to be at. So we're gonna do this for the other 2 bags of curds that I put aside to drain, and just kind of wait for our water to heat. And meanwhile, I'll be pressing all the way out that I can. We got some steam rising over here, so I think I'm ready to try. Usually what I would do is, you know, take a spoonful of this and heat it like that, but I wonder if I couldn't just do this. I just have to be careful not to melt my strainer. That way I might not lose as much curd. See, there's already one or a couple floating. I'm gonna try this today. It's not quite underwater all the way though. So we're just gonna let this warm up for a while, a couple minutes. I'm gonna see if I can get in here and oh, that's nice. Usually I don't use this deep of a pot, but since I did so much, I figured this would be easier, but I'm kind of having to really stretch to reach down into this pot. So what we're doing now is just heating the curd, and we need to heat it to a point where we can get some stretch out of it, and you'll see it develop into a stretchy, stringy mozzarella. I think that worked pretty well, putting it in here with this cheese mold first. Because normally when I'm just using this slotted spoon, I tend to lose too much of the curd. That's actually normally where I use my rubber gloves for this part of the process, and I can feel the water getting hotter, so I think I better get on my rubber gloves. You know, this pot is actually big enough that I think I can get another one set in here. But I'm gonna get my gloves on. So I'm actually standing on a step stool. That's gonna be way better for me with dealing with this deep pot. You can see it is starting to melt together and get a little bit more of that smooth texture back. I don't think it'll have much stretch to it yet, just a little bit. So we need to keep heating it. See what we can do with this one here. This is a little bit smaller, so this is a little easier to handle. And we still have one ball of curd waiting. But I think working 2 at a time is plenty. I really like this idea. It's working pretty well. As long as your water doesn't get, you know, hot enough to melt that mold. But while I can work in the water with my hands, I think we're okay. I don't think it's going to melt. Oh, this is so beautiful. It's still not where we want it to be as far as the smooth texture goes, but I think we'll get there. This is the fun part of making mozzarella, is when you're working the cheese with your hands and you can feel that stringiness. And it might not get, you know, entirely smooth on us. Sometimes it does and sometimes it doesn't. This being smaller, it might even be ready faster than the first one we put in there. Got some melting to do in the middle there. And you don't want to be too aggressive as you're working it, because when you're, you know, kneading around too much and being a little too aggressive with it, you'll end up with a tougher cheese. Kind of the gentler you are with it at this point, the softer your mozzarella will be. So even if my texture isn't perfect, sometimes I'll just say, okay, I don't want to keep working it this much, and just, you know, at some point make a judgment call and say, okay, this is enough. It's starting to get a nice stretch, that's for sure. I might have to back my camera up a little bit so you can see. Sometimes I stretch this thing so far. I'll see if I can get a better shot of that. Getting a beautiful stretch out of this. I wish you could see just how far. This is almost to the ceiling. What a beautiful mozzarella. You know, the texture isn't perfect, but you know, this is cheese making at home. I'm getting drops all over the place trying to show you this stretch, but it's okay. I'll clean it up. Just beautiful. Okay, I'm not going to mess around with it too much longer. You know, at whatever point I feel like I can get a good stretch out of it, I will form it back into a ball. And I have an ice water bath prepared. Isn't this just beautiful? Form it into a ball. This is my ice water bath. Actually, I forgot to salt it, so we're gonna salt it first, and then we'll get it in the ice water bath. See if I can get it to where you can see what I'm doing here. You can salt your balls as you're doing the stretching, but I actually have come to like salting it after I formed the ball a little bit better. It can apparently sometimes also yield a softer cheese when you salt it after you form the balls. And there we go. So we're going to do the same thing with the rest of our curds. That one turned out really nice. Okay, we're going to get our last one set in here. At this point, this one should be ready to stretch as well, because that's been laying in that water the whole time I was stretching the other one. It's getting some salt on there because I suppose I had some salt still on my gloves. This is a smaller ball than the one we just did. So it's not going to stretch quite as far because it's not quite as much, but still beautiful stretch. I feel kind of spoiled when I make mozzarella with cow's milk, because usually I do it with goat's milk from the goat that we milk, and it's just, the texture is way not as stretchy, and it's just not near as much fun as it is with this milk. It still produces a decent mozzarella, but you know, you don't get to play around with it as much because the texture of the curd is almost softer with the goat's milk, so you have to be so careful. So ginger with it almost. Okay, this is ready to salt and put in the water bath. And this is heating. It's going really well today. We still have that cream cheese to deal with. Put my salt on. Get that in the water bath. See, my hands are salty, but that's okay. Nothing wrong with getting some good salt into this. Even, like I said, it's okay to even get salt in here while you're stretching. A lot of people choose to do that. So this still has some melting to do. It hasn't had those 5 or 10 minutes in here that the other one did. Well, we were playing with the first one. So I think this can go for another couple minutes. All right, let's see what we can do with this one. So as you can see, from these 3 gallons of milk, you know, we didn't yield 3 gallons of mozzarella, you know, far from it. We got 3, I don't know, maybe they're a pound each. That one of them is smaller. So it doesn't yield, you know, a huge amount of cheese. I mean, you make a couple pizzas, you make a lasagna or an Italian chicken dish, this is gone. So, you know, you don't get a huge amount of cheese for the amount of work that you put into it. So you don't get huge quantities, but let me tell you, the quality is worth it. There is nothing quite like the taste of fresh cheese that you made yourself. So even though it sometimes doesn't stretch far, for all the work you put into it, it is so worth it. So before we know it, this will be done and we'll be making more. But it's such a fun process. And usually I do plan on having a meal that uses mozzarella on the same day, just, you know, to use the freshest cheese possible. So today I have a spaghetti squash in the oven. I'm gonna do a lasagna type thing, stuff the spaghetti squash boats with the lasagna filling and top it with this mozzarella. It's gonna be really good. So I think this is good. So we'll get it over here, get it salted, and in the ice water. Now, how to store this? You can store it in some whey or even in this water. It's probably a good idea to keep it submerged while you're just refrigerating it so it doesn't dry out. And if you want to freeze it, I will just take the cooled off cheese, slip it in a Ziploc bag, and put it in the freezer like that. So this is what we ended up with from 3 gallons of milk. It could be that they're a pound each, but they really turned out beautiful. This mozzarella was a success, so now we need to hope that our cream cheese turns out this well. Okay, our cream cheese or our mozzarella is out of the way. So let's get started with this cream cheese. Turn the burner on. I think I'm going to turn it on to 8, so pretty high. And I'm going to stir it as it's heating. The goal is to bring this to a boil. So this has pretty much reached a boil, and I've turned it down. You can see the bubbles there on the sides. So at this point, my pot is on low, and we're going to use a little bit of a different chemical reaction to make this milk release the curd. So for the mozzarella cheese, we used rennet and citric acid. This is vinegar, just regular white vinegar. Actually, this is not the best spoon to use. What I actually like better is one of these. You can see it's already releasing the curd. And I might have to add some more vinegar to it. I've never actually done this big of a batch of cream cheese either, so this is all new territory for me today. And I have done this before with vinegar. There's also a couple different ways. There's people that have success with buttermilk. I didn't have all that much success when I used buttermilk. You can see the whey is turning yellow as it's releasing more and more of the curd. I'm gonna add one more little splash for good measure. And no, like I was saying, I've never tasted vinegar in my finished product. If you're worried about using vinegar, I guess I've maybe never added enough that I would, you know, taste that. Okay, this looks like it's released all the curd, so we'll go ahead and dump it into strainers as well. Okay. See, it looked like it was kind of just a globby mass, but I'm actually always really pleasantly surprised when I make this cream cheese at how smooth the curd ends up being. As we take off the whey, it's going to turn into like the smoothest curd you've ever seen. This is hotter than the mozzarella. Maybe that's why it's already smooth. Because we bring the mozzarella to 80 degrees which is still a ways away from boiling. And this milk gets heated to the boiling point for the cream cheese. I suppose that's why it produces such a smooth curd. And just strain out as much whey as we can before we take the next step. So we have this mass of curds that I'm squeezing whey out of, and I think I'll take probably half of it at a time to turn into cream cheese, because I'm using a food processor, and I think it would probably be better if I split these in half and did half of this at a time. So I'll just keep squeezing out whey until I feel like it's good enough to take the next step. Okay, these are the main ingredients. This is what's going to go into my cream cheese. Sorry, I'm trying to adjust my focus here. So butter, heavy cream, and salt. And I have my curd in here. So today I'm just going to eyeball everything. If you want a more detailed instruction and more detailed amounts on how to make the cream cheese, I will link a video below in the comments where I'm just making the cream cheese and using more exact amounts. But since this isn't my first rodeo, I'm just eyeballing everything today, and I will link that video for you in the comments below. So this is after a couple minutes of pulsing. And what I'm going to do with it today is I'm going to try to freeze it. So I have these little containers that I'm going to, kind of try and judge about the same as an 8-ounce block of cream cheese would be. I'm not going to weigh it or anything. This is how I'm going to, just kind of going to eyeball, is this, about the same as an 8-ounce block. And I'm gonna freeze them in these containers. Okay, this is the second curd. Remember, we split that in half. So this is the second one. Again, we're totally gonna eyeball the cream and the salt and the butter. And again, we'll pulse it for a couple minutes. And that's it. So here's what I ended up with for the cream cheese. And I kind of just eyeballed, like guessing that these are about the same as the 8-ounce the 8-ounce blocks of cream cheese. This tastes amazing, but I'm actually just gonna take one of them and put them in the refrigerator, and I'm gonna freeze the rest because this does go bad. Means that it's not, processed, or there's nothing in there to, like the store-bought cream cheese you can keep in your fridge for months. This is fresh, homemade. So I'm gonna put most of it in the freezer. I've never done it before, but I don't see why it can't work. The one thing that might happen is it might change the texture just a little bit. This is thick. I don't know if you can see how thick it is, but it's amazing. The taste is so incredible. As with most things homemade, it's wow. And I've been able to use it for, I want to say I do everything with it except make cheesecakes. That's pretty much the only thing that you'll want to opt for store-bought cream cheese for things like cheesecake. But this is so good for adding to most recipes. When it calls for cream cheese, I've been really, really happy with it. So one is going in the fridge and the rest in the freezer. So the aftermath of my cheese making is this bucket of whey. You can do a number of things with it. You can make soup out of it. You can make all kinds of drinks out of it. I have not ventured that far. I figure maybe sometime during the winter I might try the soup thing, but for now we have a whole lot of animals waiting that absolutely love this whey. So it's going to the animals today. Well, we have our bucket of whey, so we're going to see which of the animals are interested in this. It's actually still warm. It's been a few hours and this is still warm. So I'm going to get some put in there. I'm thinking the kitties and the dogs are probably going to drink that. Well, they're probably going to start a war. Uh-oh, the pig must have smelled it. Nope, they're not interested in that. They want to drink from my bucket. She thinks she's crazy. Well, we're going to keep going. Looks like the geese aren't interested. We're going to see if the chickens want any of this. Maybe I'll top that off before I go, since he's having such a good time with it. It's not going to take long and that'll be empty. Looks like they're really enjoying it. I wonder how long it's going to take the pig to get back out here, and hopefully they'll be done with it and he won't chase them away from it. Well, anyway guys, thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed this video, as always, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you never miss a video. We will talk to you soon.